Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start. We're very conscious that there are, as I said before, still quite a lot of people having coffee and snacks and things. So they may come in as we carry on. But out of courtesy to you, we're going to start and accept that people may come in the end. So welcome to anyone who's watching online. My friend's just about to walk in front of the camera. There you go. You can see his backpack. Okay. My name is Stephen Peck, and I'm the chair for this session this afternoon. My role in Scouting is I'm one of the directors for Scouting in the UK, and my friends have asked me to tell you that one of the unique things about me is I'm the director at Gilwell Park. So I live at Gilwell Park and work at Gilwell Park. So if you're interested in speaking to me about Gilwell Park later, then that would be great. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're going to talk about Scouting Open for All, and it's a question that challenges all of us in all our NSOs and around the world. And it's a debate that's been characterised by disagreement and a lot of energy and a lot of passion by people over the last few years about really quite very precise issues. What we wanted to do this afternoon was look at some of the global issues that are stopping Scouting being genuinely open to all young people. We want to do that in an atmosphere of respect, but also an atmosphere of understanding, so that when you leave here you have a greater understanding of some of the challenges from around the world. And I'll introduce you to my three colleagues in a minute, but it's also important to say that one of the things we really want from you is your contribution and your opinion and your views as well. So we will hear some thoughts from my colleagues here, but towards the end of the session we will be asking you for your comments and the challenges that you think Scouting has as we look forward in the next 10 years of the things that we need to address. So, is that clear? Yes. Good. We're going to be looking at these three things. One is the current barriers there are, and we'll have three short inputs from my colleagues here. Then we will be looking at current initiatives, so things which are currently happening to overcome the barriers to accessing Scouting for young people around the world, and some thoughts about the future, and then that's when you come in and we can have a broader debate about that as we get towards the end of the session. Okay? Clear? Okay. If you fall asleep, I will point to you. Okay? And we'll turn the camera around so that your NSO can see that you're asleep in the session. So, okay. Let me introduce my three friends here. First of all, we have Niccolo Pranzini from Europe. Niccolo works for the European region, particularly on the Safe from Harm project, which is about child protection issues in Europe. But he comes from Italy and has a very local perspective on Scouting, as well as a national perspective on Scouting, as well as professionally an international perspective on Scouting as well. So he has a broad experience from across Europe. Dr. Wayne Davis is the Chief Commissioner for Scouting in Ethiopia. He's also a member of the African Region Committee and he's a doctor of education and psychology. He's worked in education for 20 years and we're very pleased to have him here. He has a particular perspective on issues facing Africa today. Finally, we have Mohammed Mustafa, and I'm sorry I've forgotten to put on the end here. You may have gathered from his name that he's from the Arab region. Mohammed is the International Commissioner for the Federation of Egyptian Scouts. He is a Sea Scout, but his profession is as an air traffic controller. So I don't quite know. I would be very worried about flying into his airport, actually, as a Sea Scout. Don't worry about it, he says. Yeah. And Mohammed has a particular perspective on the Arab region and the issues facing the Arab region. It's been very interesting for me to listen to these colleagues as we've been preparing for this session, the number of similarities there are between the issues being faced by many of our regions around the world. So I hope you'll find that very interesting as well. So I'm going to ask each of them to present in turn, firstly looking at the barriers, secondly looking at current initiatives, and thirdly, looking at the future as we go forward. And we're going to take it in the line that's there. So 3 short inputs, then another 3, and then another 3, and then it's open to questions. So, Nicolo, if I can ask you just to perhaps give us some European perspective on some of the barriers that making scouting open to all.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Steve, and good afternoon. Sorry, the mic is really loud, but I'll do my best. A bit down. Okay. I'd like to start my presentation by sharing with you something that once a trainer told me during a woodbed training course. He told me, if in your local group everything is perfect, there are no challenges, everybody comes from the same social and economical background, and everybody is maybe white and very religious, then you are in big trouble. Meaning that you're not doing your job, properly your job. I think this is a good start by looking, and I want to start looking at what is the reality in Europe at the moment. We all know it's in front of our eyes that the society in Europe is changing. By looking at the data, we can see that the percentage of citizens from third countries coming from outside the European Union is there is a terrific raise of these people, and something like the 4% of the entire European population now comes from outside Europe. And of course, this percentage can be diverse from country to country, but this is already, in my opinion, a very important data to bring on the table. The second point is that the vast majority of these new citizens, let's call them like this, are young. And most probably they are also parents of daughters and so on. And so they are really a potential for us. The third potential to be reached, that at the moment maybe we are not properly reaching. The third point is that after considering the financial crisis, the young people today are more vulnerable than ever. There are statistics saying that almost the 20% of the share of young people in Europe are at risk of poverty. Also, very relevant for me is that, for instance, at the same time, more than 1/3 of the young people in the European Union are between the age of 18 and 25 are neither in education, employment, or training. So meaning that what are these guys doing? What are we thinking about all these people that maybe are not involved at all in scouting? So first point I want to bring, society is changing due to migrations, due to the financial crisis. Then a bit more about scouting in Europe. You would be delighted to know that scouting in Europe is at a terrific increase in the past decade by 500,000. No, sorry. Yes, by 500,000. So my point is that's amazing. I think this is really great, and it was a huge commitment done by, of course, by all the NSOs. But my point is that an inclusive growth? How do we make sure that growth involves young people from diverse social, cultural, economical, religion background? So considering this background, so the change of society and the growth of scouting, I have identified 3 barriers that, in my opinion, my very personal opinion, are at the moment making scouting not accessible to all in Europe. The first are policies and programs of NSOs that are not updated to this new situation. Maybe we cannot keep doing what we have been doing for the last 30 years or so without considering that things have changed. Second point, the image of scouting. Not always scouting is still perceived as an inclusive and welcoming organization for everyone. You know that quite often scouting can be linked to religion, to kind of military approach, to a holistic community. So still, in my opinion, this is one of the key elements that are keeping young people a bit away from scouting. And then the third, but very important one, the lack of volunteers that are, without volunteers, of course, we cannot take care of the development of the young people. And considering also what I said before about the crisis and about the difficulties that young people are facing today, then nowadays it's still more difficult to have young volunteers spending their time for scouting. You might disagree with these three barriers I identified, and I will be very keen to listen to you later if you have something else in mind. But in my opinion, the not updated policies and programs, the image of scouting, and the lack of volunteers are the key barriers that at the moment are somehow not making scouting accessible to all in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicolo. Much of the data that we have worked on is basically secondary, and it expresses our own views, as Steve has mentioned. In light of that, I would like to address a few of the challenges that we have in Africa on youth issues, from the area of youth, not just scouting, but generally what are the youth facing? What are we facing in a region that we have that has the world's majority of 10 to 24, which is the age bracket of youth, according to the Population Reference Bureau's World Youth 2013 data sheet. The youth population of Sub-Saharan Africa is increasingly and continues to increase rapidly. Nearly 1 in 3 people living in the region, or about 297 million, are between 10 and 24. And this is expected to double by 2050 to 561 million. Unfortunately, out of that total youth, 60% accounts as unemployed youth. These are out of school, neither in training and employment, they're in the middle, or they are underemployed. The youth of the region is also becoming better educated. Most of the youth are more educated than their parents were, but they are underemployed compared to their parents, or they are without jobs. Estimates show that a proportion of 20 to 24-year-olds who completed secondary education will increase from 42%, which is now, to 59% in just 20 years. This challenge causes young people to settle for less than ideal employment, such as jobs that are low-paying, temporary, or unsafe, or ones that they are overqualified for. Now, youth underemployment or unemployment remains to be the biggest barrier even for scouting in the region, due to the fact that the youth are not able to take time to volunteer or to be involved in activities. It takes a huge toll on what we would like to do in scouting as making it open. The second thing is lack of foundation skills. Other than being unemployed, we have a major problem in terms of school dropouts. Believe it or not, about 37% of girls and 32% of boys drop out, this is according to the African Development Bank, drop out of school before they complete secondary school or just after 4th grade, between 4th grade and 12th grade. So you have a lot of young people who either drop out of school before even completing the basic skills or before having a meaningful qualification. Now, it gets even worse. According to the African Development Bank, in Niger, 83% of girls and 74% of boys are not in school. This is how dire the situation is. Some leave school to work in low-skilled jobs where the possibility of advancement is very limited. And there is no mechanism that they are supported. You have few NGOs that are doing certain or very limited amount of work. There is scouting trying to do a limited amount of work, but it is not addressing the total toll of the severity of the problem. The other major problem is very much related to what Nicola was saying, the internal and external migration of youth. Whereas in Europe or America, you have a lot of immigrants entering. From Africa, we have a lot of immigrants leaving the continents. The youth is living on two levels. Internally, from rural areas to urban areas, because they want to get something better. They want to get improved. It's a human instinct. They want to improve their lives, so they move from rural. And whereas you have the majority of Africa's population is dependent on the land, which is a rural-based society, and that is causing a lot of problems. Now, the influx of young people moving into African urban areas worsens the unemployment, and it creates even other social situations, because most people are looking for jobs in populous cities like, example, Lagos, Nairobi, Johannesburg, and if you proportionately study this, the crime rates increase, homeless youth increase, and all the others. Then the other problem we have is ethnic diversity in Africa. According to Elliot Green, Africa's ethnic deviation is more than 35% higher than that of any other region in the world. So just to give you as an example, if you take Ethiopia, in one country of 86, 88 million, you have 83 different ethnic groups. Now, most people think of ethnic groups as white, Asian, and stuff, but within the African community, within the same people, the same race, you have very diverse, totally opposite ethnic groups. And that, unfortunately, that diversity has caused or has become a reason for a lot of tribes to go into armed conflicts, to engage into war and, a lot of problems. So the other problem we have is, of course, access to land, the religious rift that is very much closely correlated to the ethnic diversity. Then, of course, we have the armed conflict issue. And a World Bank survey in 2011 showed that about 40% of the youth that join rebel movements say that they were motivated from lack of jobs. So basically, young people are joining because of no hope feeling, because they say, okay, what's the point? I just joined. Today, grave violations are taking place against children and youth in over 20 war-affected countries. And of course, the primary victims are young people who are being killed, who are maimed, orphaned, abducted, and deprived of education and healthcare, and forced into serving the rebels in one way or the other, mostly with armaments and all. Now, children and youth are uniquely vulnerable in voluntary military recruitment. Hundreds of thousands are associated with armed forces, including those of non-state actors. Now, mind you, the severeness of the situation has gone into level of young people. I'm talking about like 10, 11, 12-year-old kids being recruited to be a military or an armed soldier just because they are easy to train and it's very easy to get their loyalty because of their youthfulness. So these are the dire problems that we're facing within the continent.
Good evening, everybody. I'm proud by myself to be here in this session, especially with Steve Big, the only person in the world that have 6 P's, and also is proud with my colleague Nicola, and we have some problem facing in the Arab region, from the Arab side, and the first one is the promotion of including young scouts and young from which refugees or coming from the foreign countries which live in something like Arab region, by some of them by the work or by the living, like in Gulf area, which is a lot of Asian people working and live there, and also from people from the Arab country which working there. And also in some other countries which for the refugees which coming from the Arab Springs and revolutions, and also which people is collecting from the preventing of illegal immigrant. The same in Egypt, we have more than 3 million refugees which coming from Libyan and from Syrian and living now together. Now, and some of them was scouting in their country, and when they come back, now living in Egypt as refugees, we're facing a lot of problem. How we deal with this? When in a scout field, in our scout, we are looking for these people who's scout in this, and they selecting them to make scout troops, and they help, to make scout groups which can help how we can deal with this huge numbers, which especially as in Egypt have the same problem with my friend in Africa with the lack of foundation and also lack of volunteers. And also on the other side, we have another problem was facing us with the handicaps. With the handicaps, we don't normally before we don't have using the equipment and how we can deal with the handicaps during the scout movement. Now we have a lot of problem facing the handicaps, whichever they have. But and also we have the very big problems with boys and Girl Scouts, which how we communicate or how we engage them together in the same scout group, because especially in our organization and or most of the Arab scout associations, they have only boys, and some of them have girls, but in a separate association, and most of them using their activity in a separate way. Now we're starting to solve this problem, and this is the main 3 measures which I can talk about. Okay, my friend Steve.
Okay, so we've had a quick look at some of the barriers that are facing many of the Scout associations here, and we can see there's quite a lot of similarity here about is the scouting that is being offered, is it relevant to the needs of the young people and the adults who join it? Is it relevant to their, we've heard extreme cases here in Africa, but also in terms of employment skills, are we helping young people to live in their world? But also this common theme that came through for me of ethnicity and mixing people, whether that's refugees, whether that's indigenous populations who are perceived as culturally different, and how Scouting can and help to do that. And are we seen as taking a proactive approach to that? So what I'm going to ask my colleagues to do now is just give you some examples of some of the initiatives that are being taken to address some of these barriers. And we're going to rattle through some examples quite quickly, and I hope you find them interesting. So over to you, Nicolo.
Thank you, Steve. I think that in our Scout life, we have all experienced or got to know about amazing stories of inclusion. I can think of many of them linked to my local Scout group. I'm sure that you can also think about some. But the point is, how can we make sure that these are not just like stories we hear? How can we make sure that all these stories can be connected together in order to reach a better impact? I am under the impression that sometimes these stories are just like little drops in an ocean where we are not really doing our best to reach out the people that would need the most to be reached. However, it's good that we have these stories that could lead the way. And if I think about my region in Europe, of course there are a huge number of this kind of experiences. Some of them can be easy found, for instance, in what we call the Overture network. The Overture network is an informal network of NSOs and NSAs in Europe that gather 2 times a year and share their best practices in terms of inclusion and diversity. And they address a variety of issues from disability, inclusion of socially excluded and economically excluded young people, how to integrate with kids from other religions, and all this. If you want to know more, I suggest you to go and check this website. But I want to bring some examples that are more that are happening at the moment, or that have just been closed. An example could be from Slovakia. I don't know if you have heard what Slovakia did in the inclusion of Roma young people. They did an amazing work in the last years, and that brought them also to a growth in the total membership. This is an amazing story, but what happened? Then the Slovakians are great, and I'm not saying anything bad against them, but at some point the project stopped, and there were no more resources to follow up on that. So what happened? That it went down again. So it's not being pessimistic here. It's just to say that great things can be done, but of course there is the need for continuity. Another example I want to bring is related to what is happening, for instance, in Macedonia, in the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, where there is at least one group that is trying to develop, and it's a group from an Albanian community. I don't know if you are aware of the geopolitical situation in the area, but of course they belong to different cultures, to different religions, to different communities. So what the association is doing is try to promote the development of a complete different scout group from a complete different background within the country. And they are struggling. But I want to bring this not because it's successful, but because it's a try they are doing. And I think that we also need to talk about what is happening, that there are struggles, that there are challenges. The last example I want to bring, it's from my country. I am Italian. In Italy we have 2 associations. One is laic and the other one is Catholic. I come from the Catholic one. Linking this to what I was saying before about the migrations. Of course in Italy I think is the 4th country with the highest number of migrants coming every year. And of course the vast majority of them are coming from the Muslim communities. So what we are trying to do is, how can we make sure that we can reach them, that scouting can reach them? Because of course it's difficult to accept from a Muslim to go in a Catholic association. But at the same time it's also difficult for the other association to reach them for many reasons. So what the decision that was taken was to try to support the development of a 3rd association, in this case a Muslim one, which in my opinion is one of the possible way forward. It's not the only one, but at least they recognize that there is an issue and they tried to address it. So I hope that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. I would like to do 2 things. First, on what is being done, I just want to take kind of flagship barriers, 2 associations from our region and what they're doing, and also the general activities that are being undertaken, or the general work that's being undertaken by the Africa region as a whole. The first one I'd like to mention is the South African, Scouts South Africa. They are exhibiting a very amazing, really positive diversity program. They show a very good diversity within the association, the involvement, the activities that are being undertaken. And this is one thing that is really positive that's happening at NSO level. Also, in terms of the addressing social issues of unemployment, homelessness, and all these things, the Kenyan Scout Association as well is running an extension program that is addressing current and really burning issues. Moreover, Scouting in Africa is doing a lot to address these issues in giving relevant skills to the youth, such as foundation skills. As we said earlier, when your youth cannot properly read and write, then you have a major problem as they grow older. So at the regional level, we have 38 NSOs, and almost in every NSO you can see that they are doing, to a certain extent, work in that area. Together with other organizations, we do a lot of transferable skills and technical and vocational skills. These are analytical, communication, problem-solving skills, as well as more technical skills like agriculture, computers, and manual work like carpentry and the likes. So there are works that are being done, but it is not enough.
In Arab region, like in the contains of foreign scouts and foreign scouts as scouts in the scout movement, as I accept them, as some people coming as scouts and the other is still born there and live there. They need to be in a part of the scouts. Now they started to take care of them and start to make a special troop for them, but not all the country did this, but some of Gulf country make this, and we start to try to pushing all the countries which have a lot of population or immigrant, we can do it. But now, most of them practice scout at least. Before, they didn't practice any scout activity. And also on the other side, for the refugees, now we make scout group or scout troops from the ages of scouts and also the leaders and the volunteers, especially where we, as I said before, we have a lack of volunteers. Now we select from them which have experience because they was scouts and they already come with the scout experience and they can help us in solving this problem. Especially we have more than 3 or 4 million refugees. They make scout troops, they make a scout community to help us with working with this because they have more understanding from their culture and they know each other well and they help us and we know what we should know as refugees and as and especially we were working with the United Nations and UNICEF and UNESCO, which a lot of organizations help us to with this problem, and they face problem how to deal with this refugees. As a scouts, because the scouts open for all, we select scouts from them which have a good background and a good experience, which help us a lot, and also our volunteers and our scouts to solve this problem. And also now we start to register national scout troops, which can contain the girls and boys in the same group, but the girl is already registered in their Girl Guide Association, and the boy is registered in the Boy Scout Associations, which Air Scouts or Boy Scouts or whichever, but they can do the activity together in the same troop, but in a separate way, but we can working together. Before they cannot do in the same troop boys and girls. Okay.
Well, thank you. Okay, so we've started to see some of the projects that are being addressed here, and some of the potential way forwards. And what I'm just going to do before I hand it over to you is to ask my colleagues just to make some comments about the future as they see it, and some of the things that need to be more addressed in the future, and some of the things that are not being done at the moment that they would like to see done in the future. So we're just going to have some few comments on that, and then we're going to come back to you for see what you think. So, Niccolo.
Thank you, Steve. Well, I have elaborated 6, let's call them steps, that in my opinion we should take to face this issue. The first one is to recognize that things have changed. Society has changed, and we cannot have the same approach and, for instance, the same educational program that we used to have for the last 30 years or so. The leadership of NSOs and NSAs must develop skill and confidence to recognize the value of diversity and how this is essential to achieve the mission of Scouting. How this is crucial. If we want to be true to ourselves, we need to acknowledge that maybe we are not at the moment really open to all. This should be the first step, to acknowledge that we are not. The second point would be to analyze our membership, to crunch a bit our numbers. I don't know exactly how, because I'm not a technician, but I believe that we should look internally to check whether these trends that society is now having in terms of migrations, for instance, are now are reflected in our membership. I don't think these numbers are available. I also know it's not easy to define, for instance, what is a young person with fewer opportunities, and might not all the people would be happy to say, I am from a minority. I'm just launching this idea that we should look, have some data to refer to. Third point, to move over from the struggle between quality and quantity. I've been hearing this many times in my Scout life. Okay, we have to ensure quality, and so we just need to keep the guys we have now, because that's the most important. Again, to be true to ourselves, we should say that most probably quality would mean to reach the people, again, that are most needing to be reached. And this might need, of course, also to change the programs and adapting them, even if they are not like the traditional ones that we love so much. Fourth point, to learn from other youth organizations who have managed to diversify successfully their memberships. Look a bit outside the window, and historically speaking, this is not something we are very good at. I wonder when it will be the time that we are good at this, about looking at the others and not just thinking that the Scouts are the best by definition. I am a Scout, I'm proud to be, but I think that there is a lot of good work done out there as well. The fifth point, to go local. What I mean by go local, to learn from the local groups, because I believe that their inclusion, for instance, is happening almost naturally. And we are quite often not able to make these stories available for everybody, and we are not able to ensure a greater impact. I think that as people involved at national levels, this would be our primary role. So look at the local, because they do it way better than what we think and what we do, most probably. And the last point, ensure sustainability of what you develop, because it's not a trend. Of course, it's a trend now that society is changing, but inclusion and being open cannot be a trend that lasts for 2 or 3 years and that stop. This should be this should be the focus that we always have while developing Scouting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The way forward, I really want to focus on what I'm saying in terms of the educational areas that we have, as this being the Educational Congress. There is a lot being done. I don't think WSEC or the region needs to do new things, but I think we need to emphasize on our core curriculum in terms of addressing and really updating our core curriculum into the current situations. What is the current situation in the region, in the parts of the world that the curriculum is being implemented, and what really works the best. We need to move with time. We have a great movement, we have great curriculum, we have great methods, but are we moving in same step with the time? Because what was relevant 20 years ago is not relevant today. So I think we need to update our curriculum in terms of addressing diversity issues, immigration issues, current social issues, employment, underemployment, health, education, and the likes. Because without integrating it into our core element, it will just remain being a project. Right now, we do these activities as projects. We do these activities with partners. But if we have it into the core curriculum, I think it can move. Like we need to have more dynamic curriculum. The next thing I would like to say is, again, a lot is being done in areas of addressing issues of the children in armed conflict. I think we need to work with higher agencies, with other similar agencies that are dealing with actually intervening and rescuing or helping young people get out of these circumstances. I mean, we have been here probably the longest that I know of other youth organizations. But what are we doing in terms of the field work? Is scouting to be known as all fun and play and this and that? Or do we actually address, this is wrong and we do something about it? We need to make our voices heard. We need to do some concrete moves in terms of, actually saving children from all these horrible things we hear on the news, we see in our world. Thank you.
Thank you. In initiative like with the handicaps in most of the Arab region, when I talk about the handicaps, it's a normal part of the community. Like maybe from your side you feel that it's normal. From outside it was not that normal before, but now we start. Most of the scout troops now already have able to accept handicaps. And also the leaders, we already made a lot of studies to prepare the leaders, or good training for the leaders to know how to deal with the handicaps. And also most of the new building which you're gonna to establish for the scouts or for the youth in general, now have a special materials for the handicaps. And now also the Arab region is going to build a new building for the Arab region. New building maybe like the same like Hong Kong, but not that big. But all of the rooms and all of the everything is equipped with handicaps equipment, just to be a part of our society and our scouts especially. Because normally in most of the buildings not equipped with handicaps, but we'd like to, as a scouts, open for all to be special for them to come to, and also now we start to make a good training for them for the special needs, for the special activity like swimming, like canoeing, like everything, and now we have special teams to challenge in the international events. And also for the refugees or the foreign people which live in our country, now with as an international commissioners in the old Arab region, we have established new section or new part or new commissioner which can deal with foreign troops which can register it and who can able to practice their scout activity in our most of Arab countries. And also we have modules and handbooks for our scouts and to know how to deal with foreign and how to accept the others and how to communicate with different human beings. And also for the last one is for the boys and girls. Now we already our federation now most of the federation now consists of part of the girl guides. So it's easy now to can participate, and also now we started to, since 2005, up till now, we participate in all the Scout Jamboree with the boys and girls as the same group together. Before, we was saying, you are thinking, how is this going on? Some troop from Egypt or from Libya or from Syria or from any other country in Arab region come. The boys together and the girls together. When you ask them together, they don't know each other because they gone a different way. But now we are in the same group, same delegation, same activity, and also same everything. This in general. Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Good stuff. Okay, well, I think you've heard enough from them. You're agreeing with my statement, or are you clapping in? Thank you, gentlemen. Some interesting views there. We've got some challenges if we're going to make scouting truly open to all. What are we going to do about the way scouting is viewed? What are we going to do about the real relevance that scouting has to the lives of young people? And again, you've heard that view echoed across all the three regions that are represented here. Is scouting relevant to what young people need today? What are we doing about the ethnicity issues, the mixing of peoples, the increasingly diverse societies that we live in? There's two other thoughts that I would add in before I pass it over to you, really. One is, what are we doing about the economically challenging situation that people find themselves in? How are we making scouting more affordable and generally open to all, genuinely open to all young people? And finally, what are we doing about volunteering? And that's the issue that we've heard again across all these three areas. Scouting is a voluntary organisation. Is that sustainable as we look forward to the next 10 years? Is that something we can do? How can we shift the way we deliver scouting to maintain that voluntary ethic but respond to the needs of our leaders at the moment? So, there's some thoughts. We're going to hand it over to you for any thoughts that you have, challenges that you have in your society, and ways perhaps that you are addressing it, and maybe some statements that you have about how you think scouting should evolve as we go forward. So, are you all awake? Yes, Steve. That's what you have to say when I say that. Are you awake? Yeah, jolly good, right. Okay. It's a bit like a pantomime, which is a very UK-based joke, but never mind. Any thoughts from anybody? Any comments that people want to make? None. We'll go. Peter? No, you have to come... What you have to do is come and stand on the spot here. You have to hold the microphone about here, and you have to speak. So...
I'd like to come...
No, this way. First there.
Goodness.
And if you just... I'm going to use Peter as an example, okay? If you just hold it down there, because these are very loud, these microphones, as you've heard. So...
It's you. I'd like to commend each of the speakers on what they've said. It's certainly given us a lot to think about. And Nicola, I'd like to agree with what you were saying. I think it is really, really difficult for us representing the National Scout organisation of our country not to realise that in a whole lot of local scout groups we are making amazing differences, that true scouting really occurs at the local level where different communities can respond differently to the needs of the young people. I think the other thing that we need to recognise, and it came out of a session that we did opposite previously, is that whilst we may think we're not making a lot of difference, for the man and his little daughter that were walking along the beach and the little girl Peter was throwing back the starfish, it's really made an amazing difference for that starfish. And I think that's what we've got to keep thinking of, that it is the difference that we are making at our local scout groups, where in fact we are training and working with young people to make a difference in their lives. And I think that's the hope that will keep us all going. Thank you.
Don't worry. I'll hold on to it. That's fine. Thank you. So, some thoughts there that actually we are making a difference to the lives of young people, but probably that focus on local level rather than big national initiatives is the way to go, which was one of Nicolo's points. Big national initiatives are fine, but are they sustainable, which was the point we were making there. Okay, any other challenges that people have or comments you want to make in this area? How do we make scouting more available? How do we include those groups that are not there? What's the shift we have to make in the way we deliver scouting to make it genuinely open to all? Another Australian. So we're going to have someone else now after this, okay? No more English speakers after this.
Thank you. Perhaps most of you know that Australia is community-based scouting, and so we rely very heavily on our volunteers, and our parents are most of our volunteers. There's therefore the limit. We can't grow much further because we only draw so much from the community. And we well know in the areas, even in Australia, where areas are not as well developed as other areas, where the low socioeconomic situation exists, the volunteers don't exist. We know that you have to be secure in your own home and your own circumstances before you volunteer to help somebody else. So we really feel for countries that have less socioeconomic situations than we are. However, we face similar problems. In Australia, for example, the youth unemployment is close to 20%. We have the problem of trying to place those young people. Even though our government says everybody is to do a degree, we find that most of our people can't find a job at the end of the degree. We have a very big situation where 30 or 40% of our males are dropping out of education because they don't want to do a degree, they want to work with their hands, they want to do a trade. So we have a real problem in fixing the problem between the tertiary trained and the rest of the community. Now here's where I think we can make a big difference. We are in the business of learning by doing and teaching people that, and that's really the trades area, much to that effect. And I think this is where we can do a great deal of good. A project has just commenced in Australia where we are offering a trade-type qualification, a vocational education and training certificate level 2 to adventurers, 15 to 18-year-olds. So these people are still at school doing their higher school certificates. And we've now stepped into areas in Victoria, one of our branches, where we're offering these young people join scouting at 15 or 16 at school. And yes, we'll run the program in the school, but we're using venture leaders, scout leaders and not teachers, to run the program one afternoon a week. And by the way, you can go and join activities in the normal venture unit, events and activities outside of that. Now that's been very attractive. We've already attached a lot of young people to put their hand up to join, and I guess these young people generally are the diverse we talked about earlier. A lot of refugees in Australia. Scouting has a lot of Caucasian, white, European type people in it. We don't have the diversity in our scout area that we'd like to have. However, a lot of these young people are just that. They are immigrants, they're from Sudan, they're from Africa, from other places in Europe. So all of a sudden we now have collected a group of young people who would not have joined scouting. They're joining it at 15 or 16 or 17. They're doing a vocational certificate, which would be good to get a job with, help them get their job and go on to other certificates which scouting can offer. And all of a sudden we can now offer something to these young people. We can grow scouting by using another medium, another channel. So whilst our partners in the Asia Pacific region generally use the school program, in other words, teachers teach the program, we've now a third alternative, which is scout people teaching the program in secondary schools and to secondary students and giving them another option, a pathway, another pathway to employment. So I think Scouts needs to take advantage of it right across the world of being seen to be leaders in education, developing young people. And the easiest way we can do that is in fact through education. Most of us aren't international aid agencies. We can't compete in that sort of arena, but we can compete. We have a lot of good people, a lot of skills, particularly if we can convince the education system we supplement their system, not replace it, and where they can use us. Now, we have a problem in convincing our government that we're a serious education organisation, but this program we currently have running, I would say in a year or two, will demonstrate just that and give us the credentials to be seen as a true developer of young people. So I think there are ways to do it. It takes a long time. It's taken us a number of years to progress where we are, but I think we're on the cusp of actually selling to our own government that we are serious in developing young people. And I can see us developing a lot of young people in that very important age range, 15 to 18 and on into 25.
It's very interesting because many Scout associations I'm aware of do get into vocational education, and I know particularly in this region there's the Ticket for Life program, I think, Wayne, we were talking about. Is that right, guys? Do you know about this? Would you? In the Philippines? You're from the Philippines, are you? Good. Can you just come and explain for 1 minute? No, seriously, just 1 minute, a very brief explanation of Ticket for Life, because I think it's well, there's an interesting debate here. Is Scouting about fun and about social skills, or is it about vocational skills and the type of foundation skills that Wayne was talking about, or can we combine all those things in a program which enables young people to take a more constructive place in their vocational life as well as develop those social skills? But if you could just explain very quickly.
Actually, my friend and I were thinking of sharing insight about our panelists. But by the way, I'm Yaz from the Philippines. I'm in charge of the program and training division. So practically, the Ticket to Life program right now is being sponsored by the Messengers of Peace initiative. It's been running for a couple of years now. These are street children, really, whose lives has been touched and transformed by the program of Scouting. Before they used to steal drugs, and they used to snatch and pickpocket and everything. They always engage into fist fight. But since the time they went into Scouting program through the Ticket to Life project, this Ticket to Life project is actually a church-based sponsored troop, and within a week, at least 2 to 3 times, they go into this church and have this troop meeting, and then they are now engaged into service projects that also includes entrepreneurship and everything that will make them feel more, useful in life. They gain self-confidence, self-esteem, self-respect, and all that. Although their families are still living in this slum community, most of them actually do not have their own decent houses. They just sleep in the sidewalks. But right now, 2 of the scouts of Ticket to Life, one graduated already from the high school, and then planning to, he managed to get a sponsorship to go into college, and the program is really working good. The program, you will see the program that really touches and inspired people to do more and contribute to society in their own little way. Even though they were thinking that, they are less privileged, they are quite, marginalized, so to speak. But getting into Scouting in this Ticket to Life project gives them hope and the ability, the skill, the commitment and the motivation to give back to the community despite of their own challenges in life. So that is the Ticket to Life project. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. Sorry to embarrass. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, give him a round of applause, because that's a bit unfair to ask him to come out and talk about a program there. But it's something I'm familiar with of where you're teaching vocational skills and social skills to people. But is that something we should be doing? Any other comments from people? Yes. Come and join us. I'm sorry that you have to come out the front. I know it's a lot easier to talk, but we do have people online watching us, and I've got a question from one of them in a minute. So it is worth coming out. You're from Mexico, I can see, unless you've stolen a shirt. Yeah,
I'm sorry if my English is not very well. But, well, it's just a reflection. We are, okay. We are talking about Scouting for All with vulnerability groups. But what about the disabilities groups? Because we are working with orphanage, different orphanage in Mexico, and with different scout groups. And the first step is very well, everybody works with everybody, with everybody group, and when past the time, nobody goes to the group, nobody gives support, nobody can the tools to give support. And it's very, I don't know, how do you say, I don't know who speaks Spanish, but you can help me? Yeah, but no, everybody have the tools to give support for the, not just money, because we work with the young people to give support for this orphanage, but the scout group, I don't know how to say, have desgaste. Yes, they lose interest and past 1 year and finish the project. This is the first question. We have this kind of project in all the country. The second question is, what about the women participation? We have women in Mexico participate around the country, but what happened around the world? Really is not Scout for all. And the third question, what about the scouts for different sexual preference? It's very complicated talk about this in my country and in different countries, because for some people it's not accepted for scouting. And when you talk about is, no, it's a taboo. So it's really for everybody scouting or not? And when we talk about scouting for all, we're talking about not just for vulnerability groups. We need to talk about everybody. And scouting is for not just our scouting groups. And this is the discussion in Mexico. The scout groups are privileges because the people have the opportunity to have scouting. The young people have the opportunity. And when we work with the vulnerability groups, they have the opportunity to work with the scouts and maybe to contact with different agencies. But what happened with the other groups who don't have the opportunity? I think we don't look this other part, and we really, I don't know if we don't like talk about this or don't like see this part. Scouting for all is really to all or not? This is the question really. So it's difficult for every National Scouts Association, and it's complicated because we have this situation in every country, and there are the questions, and I don't know. I'm sorry for my bad English.
Your English was 300 times better than my Spanish, let me tell you. So thank you, and I know it's very difficult to come out, so I really appreciate that. So very controversial, two controversial issues there, and one point which Nicola had raised. One was about projects for particular specific groups, and how do we make them sustainable? And do we compromise our voluntary ethic? I would put in that. You know, does that very skilled work need paid people? And is that something that scouting should be doing to take scouting out? The second two were more controversial. How do we provide scouting to women more than we do currently, women and young girls, and give them the opportunity? And you raised the issue of sexual orientation, which doesn't need me to expand any further, I'm sure. But yes, if we're going to be scouting for all, then these are questions we have to ask ourselves. So some very interesting points, thank you. I don't know whether Wayne wants to respond to that. So.
Thank you, Steve. First, I'd like to thank all the interventions. I don't know your names, so forgive me, my brothers and my sister. All the points mentioned are really, really valid. And there was a very interesting discussion I had with Christy about a month and a half ago about diversity. We were talking about scouting and diversity. And she was telling me about the South Sudan refugees not integrating as much in other social aspects. So how do we get volunteers to come forward? So this is a very valid point. And with my sister, with Arena, thank you very much. Involvement of women is a very much integral part of African scouting. In most African countries, actually, in most NSOs, we don't have Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts. We have Scouts. You understand? So we are already integrated, and there is a serious emphasis. And this is actually part of, Year of the African Youth that started about a couple of years ago. That goes for 10 years. It's the African Youth Decade. And the biggest emphasis, as I said earlier on the statistics, the most affected members of society, be it in armed conflict, be it in unemployment, be it in any other socio-economical problems, it is the women and young girls. So all Scout NSOs, the Africa region, as well as even governments, we are trying to emphasize as Africans on our sisters, daughters, and mothers. So there is that, and I didn't want to separate boys are doing this and girls are doing that. That's why I passed it, but it was never forgotten. The same thing with scouting for the disabled. Again, we have programs, but the question now is, WOSM at global level, at regional level, NSOs, do we have a core curriculum? What we need is a serious core curriculum that is there, period. Not it would be nice if we do it, we have this beautiful saying, reaching out. Why do you reach out if you're there? And I think scouting needs to be there. We need to be there. When it comes to the sexual orientation or preference, as you said, I come from a region where homosexuality is a crime. We have several countries. I can give you an example like Nigeria, you would have a death penalty. You have other countries where you would go to prison. So I don't think I'm at liberty to go and say, oh, it's a law in my country, but it is wrong, or I'm a scout, it should be open, therefore it is right. I cannot enter into that controversial. As I said, I am not representing the region, I'm not representing my NS, so I'm representing myself. So my opinion is kept to myself, and I don't want to say much about it. That's thank you.
Just a few more thoughts. I think what you were saying, Irene, is true. We should acknowledge that most probably at the moment we are not open to all. But my point is, okay, first of all, let's all agree about this and let's do something now. Because it's amazing what we see at jamborees, even here in the international settings where we all accept each other. So why we are doing it now? Why don't we do it at home? Then about I'm sorry I haven't mentioned. I only focused on migrations, for instance. But that's not to say that the other kind of inclusion challenges are not relevant. I'm just saying that at the moment, in my opinion, this is one of the key elements. Of course, the work with the disabled, this is crucial, but we have been doing this for 100 years. So let's keep doing it and improve on that. There's no doubt about it. For other very delicate issues like the sexual orientation, again, as Davis, I'm not going to offer my personal opinion because I don't think that's the place. I'm just saying that already thinking about it, it's a good thing. In your associations, here in the fora where you are already thinking about it, but there are some structural barriers in a way that are difficult to force. The law, for instance, which is the biggest most probably. What is important for me is that the reflection starts and scouting is up front in the reflection to make sure that we are there when there will be the time maybe to open even more of what we are open. I can bring you the example. As again, I come from a Catholic association. We were the first, in Italy, the first Catholic association addressing the issue of homosexuality. I'm telling you, we have been really aggressed by media and by everybody saying that we were homophobic, which was absolutely not the point. We were the first Catholic educational association addressing the issues, and for this it was already very difficult. What is important to me is that, okay, we can take that. We can take all the difficult situation like with the medias and stuff, but we need to be up front and at least thinking about it, like you have done now, sharing your thoughts here. So thanks a lot.
We are here to find out Scouts opening for all. We should start to challenge now when we back because as you say, Lorena said that we have all facing a lot of problems during all our countries and all our association. Now we should, as a Scouts, we are 100 years of Scouts now, and we're facing a lot of problems, and we start to solve them. So now we can back again with new energy to open Scouts for all to everyone consists of in his association, in his region, to how Scout be open for all, and how we increase Scouts, and how we working on. That's it. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Sorry, we've got a comment from the back there. Brilliant. And we have a comment from a participant who's sitting up here too. So if I can ask you, first of all, look like you're from the Hong Kong Scouts. You're the smartest dressed person here. So
yes, today's topic is open to all. I just want to share with you all here. In Hong Kong, in fact, everybody knows that we are a mixed culture here, West, Mixed, East. So in Hong Kong, we are trying to recruit all members from all religions, no matter which religion they are, and also no matter what classes. We recruit local Chinese and also other nationals in Hong Kong. For example, or the Nepal or Philippines Scouts here. We try to recruit all and let them to join our scouting here. And also, in particular, we have some youth members. They are young offenders. This morning, you saw the talent dance. All of those scouts are coming from the Correctional Service Department. We try to let them to be scout, although they have committed crimes, but they try to have a new life through scouting. So we, in Hong Kong, we just want to mention that we accept every classes, and we want to accept all classes and open to all. And I think it's quite possible. But maybe it is here in Hong Kong because we have many different cultures. So we accept for more than 100 years, we East, West, then we can do this and very well in Hong Kong. Just share with you all. Yeah.
There's an interesting point there about, Hong Kong's been a melting pot of people and society and cultures for hundreds of years. And therefore, the issue of mixing and people being accepting different cultures is just inbuilt into your society. But it's a very interesting example of reaching out to young people who were perhaps in the criminal justice system and how to help them there. You wanted to make a point?
Good. Thank you. As a rapporteur, I can also participate, and I had some ideas to share, jumping on some thought there. Nicola, you were pointing out the fact that we need to carry on this agreement. We have here this consensus and these ideas done to our national and local levels. And I think that also is related to the fact that it's normal that we speak a lot at a theoretical level sometimes when we are gathering at an international level. And then when we go back home, why is it more difficult? It's because we need to be a lot more practical when we are back home than over here in Hong Kong. To be more practical, we need, as you said in step 2, we need figures. We need to evaluate the situation. We need data, and I thank you both, all of you guys, the three of you, for data today. To get those figures, we need to do some auditing of maybe our situation today. And back home in my association, the Scouts et Guides de France, we are conducting some, well, we are about to do that. We are implementing today the process of evaluating our diversity. And we realized lately, that was last weekend we were talking about it, that the people who would be in charge of conducting these surveys and analyzing our membership are Scouts. And we thought that this is maybe not the most efficient people for doing it in a very objective way. So I'd like to leave us with this idea of involving already in the process of analyzing our own memberships, people that are not Scouts, and this way our arguments will be stronger, and with figures we will be able to have indicators, we'll be able to monitor our efforts and focus them on the right areas.
You wanted to make a comment?
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Where are you from?
I'm from Denmark, and my name is Peter. And well, why I'm here? Well, I would like to say that I'm heading our national program committee, and well, basically it's just some comment on what I heard today and what I heard from the panel, because I'm here in this session because, well, on one hand, well, it's a comment on this project-based focus and the sustainability of that, and also the local group focus on the local group. So that's what I'm reflecting a bit on, because on one hand, from a national point of view, we are very focused on this issue of open to all, and I guess we all agree on that it's important. So in my association, we strongly support that also, and we kind of thought, let's do something about this in terms of initiating an inclusiveness project. And so that's what we did. First I kind of wrote emails to some leaders asking if they wanted to participate in this, and and I got one response back saying that it sounded very interesting, but at the moment he didn't have the time to participate in this. Another approach was that we hosted a national workshop on diversity and invited very broadly leaders from all levels, and I think we got 3 positive responses, and we cancelled the workshop. So I think we are facing some challenges, at least in my association, in terms of the involvement in this. On the other hand, and that's the side story, within the last 3 months, I, as head of the program committee, received 3-4 inquiries from local Scout group leaders asking for advices or best practices within working, or most of the cases was working specifically with kids having these letter kids, what do we call it, ADHD kids, and how to approach these in a Scout setting. And I had to respond that actually we didn't have any materials from national level. I know other association has that. But so it's this, on one hand, we as National Scout committee members wants to do something, but where's the engagement at national level? So my point is here, I think it's important to let this grow really from the local level need. And as a National Scout Association, you need to be ready when somebody throw a ball to you, to be ready to catch that and work with it. So basically what we are initiating now is that I want to start a network inviting local group leaders that has successes with inclusion of different kinds of young people with different problems and backgrounds. So that's our starting point, and that's what I want to say.
Before I ask for any final comments, we've had some comments online which I'd like to share with you. Somebody has, and we don't have a name for these, so you'll have to bear with me. It says someone saying, as we have different cultures, economy, and religious backgrounds in different countries, should we adapt ourselves to global values or should we stick to local values? Which is a really interesting comment about, you know, how far do we go to push our values onto everybody and have a common standard? How far do we go with that? And I don't think we have the answers to these questions, but it's a very interesting point. Yeah, it's a very specific comment there, so I'm not going to read that one, excuse me. And someone also talking about the issue of volunteering and saying that actually expanding our program and structuring our program stops people being able to be part of scouting, that someone wanted to be involved as a scout age in the 18 to 25 and wanted to be a scout instead of a leader. But because of the way their association is structured, they can't do that. So they're forced into being a leader. And does that mean that scouting's open to him or her? Probably not. But I would also look the other way and saying, actually, the way we structure our volunteering, does that really allow people to have the flexibility they need these days to volunteer as much or as little as they can? Peter was talking about people, you know, people's motivation to address some of these issues is quite hard when people are very busy as volunteers, they have jobs and things. And maybe we need to think about a different way of volunteering as we go forward. So I'm going to ask these gentlemen if they've got final comment, very brief comments to make. And unless there's anyone in the room who has a burning desire to make any comments, I'm going to let them talk and then I'll wrap it up and then we can go and get some tea or something. So you've got a microphone there, gents. Niccolo?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Steve for doing a great job and to you all for being here to listen to us. I hope you haven't slept too much. I just want to reinforce my point. Diversity should be one way, most probably the way, to grow our membership, to bring scouting where it's most needed. And we should really we should really say the truth to ourselves. At the moment, we are trying, we are doing an amazing job already. I have no doubt about that. Our Australian friends, I agree with you. I mean, I'm very passionate about what we are doing. But maybe as I'm a scout myself, I'm never really satisfied. I always want to do more. And I think that there is the room to do more. So we should reach much bigger impact by reaching the communities that are not yet reached. This should be our main focus nowadays. Thank you.
Thank you. First, something is bugging me. You guys started clapping for Steve and you stopped all of a sudden. Can we do that and finish it, please? Yeah. As a conclusion, I would like to reiterate that Scouting is doing a great job. We're not here to say, oh, we're not doing any work, it's pointless. No, we are doing a great job. But as it is expected of all best things, there is something better. And this is what we were trying to make a point on. We are doing a good job, but is that it? We're doing the best, but is that it? We can always push for more. Of course, one of the things I would like to challenge all of us from our national, at world level, at local level, is when do we move from traditional way of scouting to today, to the new way of scouting? How do we make our movement a kind of very dynamic, adaptable movement that moves with times? Because when we started this panel discussion, we started with, is scouting open for all? No, because of this challenge, that challenge, and we've been talking about challenge. Challenge will never stop. Challenges are what make us who we are. But how do we face a challenge? How do we improve our education methods to actually address current challenges in our parts of the world? The second thing is, in Africa as well, we have the Food for Life project, which is doing a great job. We have the Messengers of Peace initiative worldwide that is making a difference in people's lives. We have partners like the FAO, UNICEF, and other international agencies and local NGOs that are working with us, and governments as well. But how do we market that? For an organization that is older than 100 years, it's about time the world knows what we're about. People should know that we're not only about camping and games and fun. We're talking about serious ground level work. So this is, I think, what we need to focus on from our educational methods. Thank you.
From our point of view, we should open the door for all the scouts for the diversity. We are working hard with the international organizations like UNICEF, UNESCO, and the Messenger of Peace. Also, we have a lot of projects which can help and survival to open the door for all. But we still need to working hard as a scouts because we know more what we need. But we participate most of the international events, which as this and other organization need to help. But we'd like us to have our own project and ask them to help in our own project, not to help them to what they're gonna need from us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to end there, but it's very interesting, I found, in talking to my colleagues, that how similar our challenges are. Although we have very, very different contexts, we do have similar challenges. And I've heard no one say that scouting should not be open for all young people, which is a great place to start. However, the challenges of making it genuinely open, genuinely attractive, and genuinely accessible to all young people will require us to do some very different things in the future, some very different and uncomfortable things that perhaps we're not used to as scouting organisations. And I think, again, we've heard some brilliant examples, both from around the room here and from my friends here, so of things that make many of us feel uncomfortable in scouting. But that's where we're going to have to go if we really want to make scouting relevant to young people and the world they live in today. Having fun, camping, being in nature is great, but actually probably we need to do more. And to do more, we need to go somewhere else that's a bit more uncomfortable than where we've been today. So thank you very much for your time. I hope you found that interesting. I'd particularly like to thank my friends here who worked very hard to put those sessions together. As I'm sure you realise, it's not easy doing that. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Please, Steve, before we leave, we have a small paper to evaluation. Please, can you put your opinion and put it in the mailbox over the corner. Thank you very much.